Welcome to the Lady Landlords podcast, where we empower women to gain financial independence through real estate investing. I'm your host, Becky Nova, founder of Lady Landlords. If you're ready to buy, manage, and grow your real estate portfolio, then let's get started.
What is the life of a lady landlord like? Well, that's what we're going to be covering today because there's been so much going on over here in this world that I want to share it with you. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the events that we've been doing within Lady Landlords. And I also would like to address what's been going on with my rental property, because I think there might be a couple tips there and help with some time management that might just be useful for you. So to kind of give you a recap of what's been happening over the past week is from a Lady Landlord's perspective, we've been having a lot more events and attending conferences and things of that nature that have just been taking up some extra time, but have been really, really exciting things I want to share. And then on the other hand, I'm still managing our rental portfolio. So we ended up actually with 3 vacancies this month. And it has been a very interesting process trying to manage all of those different properties. So I know a lot of you listening have multiple properties as well. And sometimes this is going to come up for you too, where you have more than one property that you need to find tenants for. So like I said, I had 3. The first, actually, this one made me the most sad. My college students that actually live in my house hack with me in a duplex, they had graduated and they moved out. Now, those guys were with my husband and I for years. We felt like they were our adopted sons. So when they ended up graduating and leaving, it was really sad. That was kind of like the end of an era, if you will, since they've been with us for a couple of years. But we were very happy to see them move on to the next things in their life. But that apartment is actually probably it's definitely the largest apartment that we have. It's the one that rents for the most amount of rent. And it also is a little bit trickier just because that's actually in the same property as us. So because of the fact that it's in that owner-occupied building and it's under that certain amount of units, we can be a little bit pickier with the tenants that we have. We don't have to follow the same fair housing guidelines like we do with our other rentals because we are sharing that space with them. So I now have my college kids out. That is actually one of the nicest apartments I think we have. It is brand new, completely renovated, stainless steel appliances, granite countertops, gorgeous, gorgeous apartment. It's actually, even though it's in a duplex, it's actually a duplex, right? It takes up the 2nd and 3rd floor of our house. And it's just a gorgeous apartment. So that's vacancy number 1. Vacancy number 2, if you've been following along in the Lady Landlords Facebook book, I shared about our non-paying tenants. This was actually the first time I really thought I was going to have to go through the eviction process. I had 2 gentlemen that moved in about 6 months ago. They weren't even that long. And every month there just seemed to be, from one of them, there seemed to be some reason, some excuse, some problem. And then in this past month, really just kind of stopped paying. At least the other months he was late, but he kind of got caught up by the end of the month. This time that just wasn't happening. And we decided, that's it. We just really have to nip this in the bud. So we actually contacted our attorney. We even paid the retainer. And then finally at what do they call that? The 13th hour here, the tenant actually decided to move out. One of the most popular threads last week in the group was actually my husband sitting at one of our rental properties, looking at the rental property across the street and watching this guy load his U-Haul and finally get out of the property. What was great in that situation, clearly one, the fact that he moved out and I don't have to evict him. But the second thing that was fantastic was the apartment was left in great condition. We had to do very little to be able to put it back on the market. So at least that was a blessing in disguise that we could do our best to recoup our lost costs from having to flip that unit and find new tenants because it really was in good condition. So that was vacancy number 2. The 3rd vacancy that we had was one of the apartments from the new duplex that we just bought about a month ago. We've been spending the past couple of weeks making sure to get that up to rental status, and we had. So of course now all 3 of these things happened, and it was literally the last 2 weeks of August. So that was just a struggle because we clearly wanted to get people in for September 1st. That was ideal for us. A lot of people tend to move during the summer anyways and like to get settled in a new apartment before their kids' school starts. So we thought this was a great idea, a great way to really capitalize on getting renters in, but we knew it was really going to be a push to be able to do. Then I had been invited to speak at a conference in New Jersey. So that was something that clearly involved some travel and some preparation. And that was just actually a really, really fun conference. I got to meet so many new women that are in real estate investing that are growing their portfolios. So it was so great even for me just to go and hear about that and hear everybody's stories and what they're working on. But that was something that, like, right in the middle of this, when I was trying to get these vacancies filled, that came up. Great opportunity. So it was a little bit kind of stressful. It was a little bit of trying to figure out where our priorities really kind of landed. The next thing that came up was this past weekend on August 27th, we actually hosted the second annual Lady Landlords Summer event. So this was actually something fantastic. I was really excited for this. We had 60 women buy tickets. We actually sold out 2 weeks before the event, which was just crazy. But a lot went into that. I wanted to make sure that women really were able to enjoy that event, make some connections that they really needed, and had just a great Saturday afternoon out. So that was kind of just party planning mode for me, which luckily is something that I truly enjoy doing. So we have these kind of different components. So the most important thing was clearly being able to continue to get these properties out rented. And that really is very time consuming, especially when I have those multiple competing rentals. So here was kind of the process of what I did to be able to get those rented. It always starts with an ad, right? I have that ready to go. Those are things that actually I have an entire separate file. So that way, when a property comes up for rent again, I already have my ad to go. I already have my pictures to go. I already have a walkthrough video to go. So it's really just cutting and pasting from that document and putting it wherever I'm going to advertise. Currently, I'm using Facebook Marketplace and Zillow. Zillow actually for the past year had been charging for rental listings, but they actually aren't now. No idea why, but I'm going to take advantage of that. And I put that on Zillow as well. So I had my vacancies in both places listed. First thing I do, as everybody knows, if you have ever listed anything on Facebook Marketplace, you get thousands of messages. 2 seconds after you press publish, you get thousands of messages that say, like, is this available? Is this available? Is this available? Which clearly it is. You just made that post. But these are just canned responses. So to me, if you're going to send me a canned response, I'm going to send you a canned response. So I automatically just send back a link saying, like, thank you for your interest. Please complete the pre-screening questionnaire here. I use a pre-screening questionnaire through Google Forms. And the whole point of the pre-screening questionnaire is to make sure people are qualified before I waste my time showing it to them. So within that, all I do is I take my requirements that are listed in my ad and I put those into question form. So then that way I make sure that people actually read the ad, because usually they actually don't. So then this way I can really qualify people before I even schedule a showing with them. So everybody has to fill out a pre-screening questionnaire. Then after that, I schedule what I still am going to call an open house, but I tend to do time slots. I do like the idea of being able to answer everybody's questions. So I don't like if, 5 people show up at the same time, but I do set people in either 15 or 30-minute time blocks. And if they cross over, that's perfectly fine. But at least if I'm going to a property that's not something that's close, right? My property that I just bought upstate is about an hour away from me, that new duplex. It's near one of my other rentals, which is fantastic, but that's an hour drive. I'm not going to go up just because Susie wants to go see it on a Tuesday. I'm going to make sure if Susie wants to see it on a Tuesday, I'm going to show a bunch of other people also on a Tuesday. So that way it limits my time there. Also, it happens often that people just don't show up. They will never tell you. They will just completely ghost you. So to me, I'm definitely not going to go out of my way to be able to do a showing just for one person if I'm not, because I'm just not going to be certain that they're actually going to kind of follow through. So they come to that open house. At that open house is where I can kind of gauge their interest. And I explain to them at that point in time, now it's time to start the application. If this is something that you would like to move forward with, starting the application is the next process. So I do that by sending them a online source. So it goes through a third party. I actually use RentRedi. RentRedi I think is fantastic because they walk through all the application. They can fill that out. They can pay for an application through RentRedi. I don't actually have to collect any type of documents or monies or fees or anything like that. So RentReady also offers a discount to Lady Landlords of 50% off any of their packages. So if you go to their site at rentready.com, just put in code Lady Landlords in all capital letters, and you'll get 50% off your products. But when I can then do that application through them, that's when then I now get that information back, and I have to call references, I call employers, I call previous landlords. I make sure to reach out to everybody that I kind of can. To me, if a tenant's going to be giving you information, let's see what we can find out from that information. What's really important there is to make sure that you're verifying who you're talking to, right? So that way you don't have, someone putting their mom down as their employer, right? We want to make sure, or to put your sister down as your previous landlord. You want to make sure to be asking questions to kind of verify who that person is first. So for example, some of the questions that I'll ask a previous landlord would be, what was the address this person was living at? What's the apartment number? How much do they pay in rent, right? Maybe my friend knows where I'm living, but my friend probably doesn't know how much money I'm actually paying in rent, but a landlord or a property manager would have that answer to that question. So that's how I go through like my application, that I make sure that they meet my qualifications. Now, Emilio and I ended up having, for all 3 properties, multiple applicants and multiple qualified applicants. They were all qualified because I already knew that from my pre-screening questionnaire. So it was really nice to be able to go through that and then sort out which tenant was going to be the one that we were going to offer the apartment to. Clearly, once again, I had some owner-occupied property and some investment properties. So tenant selection process is a little bit different. Make sure that you're always following your fair housing guidelines where applicable. If you need help understanding your fair housing guidelines, you can always take the tenant management certification course that Lady Landlords offer. You can find that course at lady-landlords.com/courses. I'll make sure to link that down to the show notes, but it's a great opportunity to make sure you know if you're exempt, if you're not exempt, and what steps you have to do, because there is a different process between those two. Once then we notify that tenant that we're going to go with, we do make sure before we decline anybody else that we have that executed lease. An executed lease means that they have signed and read the actual lease, and that they've also paid first month's rent and have provided us with ID. So we usually use a driver's license or social security card. And then let's go back and fix that. So a fully executed lease is making sure that they have read and signed their lease. Then 2, they need to pay the first month's rent and the security deposit. And then 3, we also do collect up a couple essential documents. So we do make sure to get a copy of driver's licenses. The reason for that is because we want to make sure that the person that we met was actually the person that they said they were on the application. So it's just a great way to be able to put that photo with the name that they used on the application. So great, just double check there at the end before you always hand over keys. So that was actually then the process that we got to. And it was crazy that now in this past week, we ended up having all 3 apartments have great applicants that we were able to move forward with, in addition to now getting this party going. I would love to just talk about the Lady Landlords Summer Soiree for a minute or two. Like I said, we had about 60 women show up at the event, buy tickets, sold out event. And it was so amazing to see so many women show that are in this game. If you've not kind of heard the story about how Lady Landlord started, one of the reasons I started this community was because I felt like I was kind of the only woman out there. I did not have other people that I could talk to, bounce ideas off with. I didn't have my own community. I would go to networking events and it was just dude after dude after dude. And I really wanted to just make sure that I had like kind of my own safe space to be able to work through some of these issues as a lady landlord. And it was just so cool now to see us 2 years in, have 60 people being able to show up at that event and to hear all of their inspiring stories about what they're doing to get their first rentals, how they're growing their portfolio to get that second, third, fourth, fifth addition to their portfolio was just so cool. Everybody was leaving me the party just hugging me and just telling me how great it was that they met this person, they met their new real estate BFF. They met the realtor that they're going to work with, that they need help with. They're going to they met the lender that's going to be able to fund their next projects. They met a partner of somebody that they can really work with together to be able to move that needle forward towards financial freedom and being able to leave that legacy that so many of us look to do. So it was just really inspiring. If you have not attended a Lady Landlords event, do know that we offer every single month, not only a virtual event, but we also offer an in-person if you're in the New York tri-state area. So you can learn more about those events at lady-landlords.com/events. Go there, register, and hopefully we'll see you at one of the next ones. Then on top of all of this, between vacancies, party planning, and things of that nature, we also just have regular tenant maintenance. Tenant maintenance, we then are in a position where we have our other tenants that have been living in the property that are just clearly calling if there's something that actually comes up. So we did have a situation or two that did pop up that we still need to be able to take care of. And that's one of the reasons why it's so important to systemize your rentals. I do have an earlier episode about all the systems that I personally use to make sure that my tenant management properties are running really smoothly, but that is something that you might want to go back and consider listening to if you need help with that. Then otherwise, I'm just going to share 3 quick time-saving tips with you. I like to think that time management is actually something I'm fairly good at. And hopefully one of these tips is something that will help you out, because for me to be able to get through this past week with being able to still like shower, sleep, and eat, if I was not this organized and had some of these practices put into place that really became a part of my regularly routine schedule, I don't really know where I'd be. So one of the first things that I always do is I make a to-do list. I love my little checklist. I love things that I can kind of cross off, but what I really do is I get all of those different things that I need to be doing out of my brain and I put them down on paper. Yep, I use old school paper for this. I do have a tracking system that I can also use on my phone, but I like my paper. It's a notebook. I know a lot of us ladies like our notebooks. I think it's a really great way to just be able to see in front of you. And it also helps with that muscle memory when you write things down. First thing I do, just get everything out of my brain, put it down on paper. Now, after I have my checklist put together, now I can prioritize that. So I really think about what are the things that have to get done. Is there something that needs to be done by this afternoon, by tomorrow, that really I just need to be able to prioritize just because it's time limited. So I look at what those items are and I make sure on my checklist that I kind of order them of what really is things that are time sensitive. Then after that, I start attacking those tasks. It is almost always better to start with those larger tasks and the harder tasks. The ones that are going to be a little bit more complicated is really where you want to put your focus. When you're working on those small tasks, right? And this is kind of sometimes a debate. When you look at that to-do list and you're like, oh, well, I can just like knock out these 4 or 5 things. One of the problems with when we kind of knock out those 4 or 5 things is we're being pulled in very different directions. And it ends up kind of falling into that category of like multitasking. And when we multitask, we tend to be a little bit slower in our reaction time just because we have to keep switching gears from task 1 to task 2 to task 3 because we're kind of shifting spaces. So it ends up actually taking us longer. So if we work on that harder task, it not only gives us that sense of accomplishment, that'll then help it propel us through those smaller tasks. But if we work on the harder task first, if we get stuck, we know it sooner than later. So then that way, if we do need to either get extra help or if maybe there's some to-do items within the larger task, well, then we know those. And those are things that we can actually make sure to be able to take care of and meet the timeline needed for those harder tasks. So that's really what I did. That's how I was able to get all 3 of our vacancies rented before September 1st. How I was able to make sure that all of our regular tenants had the scheduled maintenance that they need for any upgrades or any problems that they had with their properties. And we were also able to have a very, very successful Lady Landlords Summer Soiree. You can head over to my Instagram at Becky Nova 24. Come check out some of the pictures. I'm still waiting for the photographer to send some more, but I am very, very excited for that. And I hope you will consider joining us at a Lady Landlords event coming up soon. So thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Lady Landlords podcast. Please make sure to subscribe or like the episode, whether you're watching on YouTube or wherever it is that you do listen to podcasts. We release new episodes every single Tuesday. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you're feeling stuck in your real estate journey, visit lady-landlords.com/roadmap to book a one-on-one workshop with me. I'll help you determine your next best strategy. Or you could subscribe to our newsletter for exclusive tips and offers. Invest with confidence. Become a lady landlord today.